Now, this is what the Disney live action remakes should be like. I want to see a CGI fox doing the violent stuff that Hugh Jackman's Robin Hood does in this movie. The death of Robin Hood sounded kind of interesting and kind of confusing on paper because it follows a much older Robin Hood who is dealing with a lot of guilt and grief over the things that he has done in the past. All of those legends about him were not exactly true. He's done many terrible things in his life that he's now having to deal with. That seemed like kind of an odd take on the character, but possibly an interesting one, and I was mainly interested because of the director, Michael Sarnoski, who did Pig with Nicolas Cage and A Quiet Place Day One. And of course, I love Hugh Jackman. So I gave it a shot, and this has a lot of really strong things going for it. I can really see some people loving it. It also has some pretty major issues, at least for me. Up front, the performances are fantastic. Hugh Jackman just disappears right into this role. He actually kind of looks like Nicolas Cage does in Pig, with the long hair and the beard. But him playing this kind of Logan version of Robin Hood, where he is older and grizzled and cynical and weary and grief-stricken. You see all of it on his face, you hear it in his voice, you see it in the way that he acts. He is brutal. The movie is brutal. This ain't the Disney version. This is dark. It is violent, like shockingly so at times, which I really enjoyed. There were some really bloody, brutal scenes, and if you're not the main character, you are not necessarily safe, no matter who you are. They make that very clear very early into the film, and that was appropriate, showing the savagery of this world and this time, the kind of world that Robin Hood was participating in. So the savagery of that outer world kind of matches the inner turmoil in his head. But all I knew about the cast was Hugh Jackman. I didn't know who else was in this. But Bill Skarsgård is Little John, and I didn't even recognize him at first. He's got a beard, he had like a bunch of dirt on his face, and I was like, wait a minute, is that Bill? Sure enough, it was. And Jodie Comer's in here too, love her. So you got some great actors here. It is a beautiful looking movie. They filmed in Ireland, and a lot of the shots of the landscapes and of the mountains look great. The lighting, when you get a lot of like indoor scenes or scenes that are lit by fires and you see just a lot of characters cast in shadow, it all looks really nice. The locations, the costumes, it all just looked like a place I wanted to be in, if not for all of the gruesome murder. And it is an interesting idea, kind of deconstructing this character, examining people's idea of him versus what he really is, myth versus reality, and just the cycle of violence as we learn about so many of the things that he did, all the people that he killed, and then their fathers or brothers or children for decades and decades would come after him for revenge, and well, I guess I gotta kill them now too, and how all of that haunts him and what kind of person that's turned him into. There are some interesting things there to explore thematically, but fuck me, this movie is slow. It starts off with a bang. The first act, the first 30 minutes, are about Robin directly dealing with the consequences of their past actions, with these people coming out for revenge, and there's action scenes, and it's violent as hell, and it's pretty engaging early on. But you know how sometimes in movies the hero will get wounded and then they'll end up at like a remote place and somebody's taking care of them to heal them and get them back into the fray for the rest of the movie? That happens here, but there is no going back into the fray. It's just the whole rest of the movie is there now, at that one location, not really doing much of anything for the next 90 minutes, the runtime of an entire different movie. Once the first act ends and Robin Hood is now in recovery at this place with Jodie Comer, the whole movie is just that now. And so it is all about like the introspection, him kind of bonding with her, bonding with this little girl, and just kind of dealing with trying to keep his secret about who he is and processing his guilt. And I can appreciate some slow pacing, some atmosphere, and just taking the time to focus on a character's inner journey. But oh my god, at 2 hours, there were some parts that really felt like a chore. And there were a few major reasons why I couldn't get into the slow pacing. It was hard for me to invest in the main character. Because if you're going to do this version of the story where it turns out all the Robin Hood tales are lies, he wasn't noble, he's not a good guy, he did a lot of terrible things, a lot of murder, he killed children, he set people on fire, just awful stuff is described to us in this. And when we see him committing the violence, he's so savage with it, we see the kind of person that he is. Okay, sure. But if he's not anything like Robin Hood, why is this called Robin Hood? Like, if it's not Robin Hood at all, then what are we doing beyond just name recognition? Like, if this was called The Death of Steven Johnson, it would be the exact same movie. If Steven Johnson was just some guy who did a lot of fucked up shit in his past and is now dealing with the guilt and the consequences in his old age, that would just be this movie. There is the element of myth versus reality, how so many people are like, oh, I've heard all these stories about Robin Hood, and he's like, yeah, no, that shit did not happen. But I didn't feel like that was enough of a focus in the movie. Like, it's mainly about him. I never felt like there was enough push and pull with those other characters believing those stories to warrant the whole thing, especially with this pace. So you've got Robin Hood, aka Steven Johnson, and we're just told about all the things that he did in the past, which has no connection to any version of the story that I'm familiar with. Maybe there are some darker takes. Maybe if you're #1 Robin Hood fan in the world, you know about some iterations of the tale that this could be a good companion piece to. But for a lot of people, and I know for me, with the versions we're more familiar with, rob the rich, give to the poor, all that kind of stuff, this just doesn't mesh. And so it makes it a lot harder to really get invested in the character, because we're just told all of these things that he did. We don't see any of it, and it makes me feel like I'm at an arm's distance from him as I'm learning all of these heinous atrocities that he committed. And I'm like, okay, well, you're not Robin Hood at all. You're Steven Johnson. So why did you do all that? Why'd you set people on fire? Why'd you kill these kids? What was the deal, man? And we just don't get enough, actually, for me to ever really feel connected to him at all or feel for his guilt. I'm just watching it unfold. I never felt emotionally drawn into it. And I've heard people take issue with the idea of turning Robin Hood into this more villainous character in an era where wealth disparity is so massive. Like, there are people who have enough money to just feed all of the starving, and every single day they actively decide, I'm just gonna not do that, actually. Maybe I'll just buy a 14th yacht. And that is a little weird. I understand people taking issue with that. I think it's fine to make a fictional movie to tell this story if you're interested in telling it. I don't think it's offensive in that way. I do just find it a little odd to make this story where you're like, what if Robin Hood is like not Robin Hood at all, actually? I'm like, well, okay, then what are we doing here? The idea of people believing in myths versus reality is hammered home pretty well at the very end, but that's it. Like, it took a long ass time to get there. It only serves the purpose for me fully in that one scene, and other than that, it just was not enough to keep me engaged through the glacial pacing. There's a lot to like here. I think it's unique. I see the vision. It is beautiful. It has great performances. The first half hour is quite engaging. And I just respect making such a dark, sad studio movie that is going to alienate quite a few people for how kind of weird and very dark and slow it is. But that slowness, woof, that really got to me, in addition to just not being invested that much. I'm gonna give The Death of Robin Hood a 3. If you want action, if you want a typical take on this character, if the slow pacing seems like it could be a turnoff, it's not for you. But for the people that are gonna like it, you want that slow atmospheric journey, then there's a lot of talent on display here with the filmmaking all around. So I'm glad I saw it for its positive elements, but there were also parts where I wanted to take a nap. So I'll definitely never watch it again. It's okay, didn't quite come together for me, even though it has some strong parts. But this was all just my opinion, so leave your thoughts down in the comments. Did you think it was way too slow? Did you not get invested in this version of the character? Or did you think it was an interesting subversion? Whatever you think. Agree, disagree, let's talk about it down there. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. Subscribe if you want to see more from me. I appreciate it, and I hope to see you next time.